There's so many people that said you can never compete at the ACC level. People thought that I was just gonna be like a good high school player and done. Being so used to being told no and you're not allowed to do this, you can't do that. You know, those types of things and those statements are kind of what drove me to become better and get to the place where I am today. My name is Chhinda and this is my story.
Do you remember the first time you played tennis, picked up a racket?
I remember like some spots here and there, but you know, my other grandpa, my mom's dad, he loves tennis. Like, he watches Tennis Channel all day, every day, even to today. Like, when I was in preschool, he would pick me up, you know, in his like blue Toyota truck. It was like this pickup truck that we used to ride on the back, and like he would bring me to these tennis courts, you know, in the city. We didn't have much, but we made the most out of what we had. And you know, the nets were just horrible. There's cracks everywhere in the courts, and you know, we had dead balls, whatever, like, and we were just hitting the ball around like just for fun. And you know, that I remember those days for sure, just going out after school and hitting tennis balls, like just over and over and over, and then just like ultimately falling in love with the sport. My uncle wouldn't let me practice until I would read, you know, at least one chapter of a book or finish a book. And at the time, like around like 6, 7, 8 years old, I read the entire Junie B. Jones collection, Judy Moody collection, and all those books. Like, he wouldn't let me go to practice unless I read, did my homework, and then I had to do like 100 jumping. I had to do 100 jumping ropes, jumping ropes, or 100 jumps on a jumping. You know what I mean. But it was like one of those like play toy jump ropes, and I just remember like at the time I had a little like iPod Nano. You couldn't even see what song was playing, but I had a shuffle of like Just Dance, Poker Face, and I would just play it over and over, and I'm like jumping rope like in the kitchen. Finally would go to practice. I practiced like on the other side of the city, so that was also another thing, is having to make those long drives like from the city into the suburbs. Definitely long nights, and then coming back in the morning, going back to school, and you know, the long weekends of being out of town and traveling in the car. So that was kind of like my day-to-day life as a kid. So, you know, some part of me sometimes feels guilty for, you know, taking this career path and, you know, not having to been able to spend as much time as I wanted with my family. But, you know, they know how much I love them, and, you know, that I'm ultimately doing this to give them a better life. My family survived and escaped the Khmer Rouge. They came to the U.S. like during the 1980s, I think, settled in New York, both of them. My dad coming to Syracuse, my mom coming to Rochester. You know, during that time, the Khmer Rouge in the 1970s, kind of amidst the Vietnam War, they came, they escaped from Cambodia, fled to Thailand, went to the refugee camp in Thailand, and then through American Red Cross, flew over to the U.S. Kind of trying to adjust to life in the U.S. was definitely hard for them. My parents don't even know their real birthday. Like, when they came to the U.S., they were kind of given a date and like kind of stamped and like, okay, here you go. My mental toughness definitely comes from, you know, my family and, you know, what they had to endure to make it over here to the U.S. and, you know, to gain better opportunities and, you know, a better life. When I'm ever struggling, I think, especially in the tennis center, I look up to my flag, because that's kind of that focal point that kind of resets me, and it's like, okay, let me get back in this zone. So coming from the city, you know, and knowing that tennis is such a, you know, upper class sport, and one of my biggest role models are the Williams sisters. I had a big poster of Venus when I was younger. I even tried to like forge her signature to make it seem like I got her signature, but like I looked up to them because they came from a very similar environment where I am from. And I think, people look at me and I'm Asian and they don't expect that, my struggles or my hardships are the same because, oh, I'm Asian, I have it better. And, we talk about like model minority and how the Asians are more viewed as, more educated, more wealthy. But in terms of being Cambodian, we are on the lower spectrum. At the time, I didn't really notice, that gap. But as I got older, I definitely look back and I'm grateful for, having the people in my life to have, got me to the place where I am today, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be playing this sport, because my parents definitely did not have the money to, bring me to tournaments and pay for my equipment and all these things. I had people that paid those things for me, free of charge. My parents didn't have to pay them. It was just that they believed in me so much that, they took that risk in investing in me. Living in that kind of environment, tennis was my way out. It was my outlet to anything I was dealing with, anything that I experienced, anything that I saw. Being at Virginia Tech at a school where we're so like fully funded and financed, well, I mean, to an extent, we stay at nice hotels when we travel, and looking back on my journey, like I learned not to complain like anymore, because I've been at the bottom. I know what it feels like. I remember as a kid, I was always complaining. Like, I'm like, I don't want to stay here. Like, I didn't understand that financial aspect of, oh, we can't afford it. Back in 2008, I played in the Little Mo tournament, which is like one of the better known like junior tournaments where people like Andy Roddick has won, made top 8. And then for the nationals, we have to go to Chicago. And from my city, Chicago is like a good 13-hour drive. I never flew an airplane until I was like 14, 15. And so my dad and my uncle, we had a Sienna van at the time, this purple, like, ugly Barney Sienna van. And he took out the seats, and it was me and my older sister at the time, and we had like sleeping bags, and, I slept the whole entire car ride. But and then I advanced onto the next round, and so we couldn't stay another night. And so we stayed like overnight in the van and just slept in the van. And then I remember, having to ask the facility people, oh, can I like shower here? Because I just felt so weird as a kid. It's a little complicated, because now that I like reflect back on those memories, I think at some point in my life I felt a little embarrassed of where I came from, because I didn't have the nicest clothes. I didn't have the Nike head to toe. If anything, I had hand-me-downs from my aunt who also played tennis. And, sometimes her clothes would be too big or like too little. And, part of me, kind of felt embarrassed, because I wanted to be like those girls. I wanted to, have the money like them. I wanted to live in nice houses like them. And, now looking back, like, that process of what I had to go through really made me who I am today, and I don't regret like anything, that I ever experienced. So, yeah. Yeah, I would say the first and only, Cambodian-American female athlete at that fact, playing tennis at this level. That's really special to me, because in our culture, just us as a people, we weren't supposed to make it here. Kind of knowing the history of my family and, the history of Cambodian people, the one thing that we will do is work hard. I think I've been tested, I think, during my college time here, at least at Tech. It's such a competitive conference, and here was kind of an eye-opening moment as well, being from a position where the spotlight was always on me, and coming to Tech where I'm not necessarily, Mike Vick on the football field, and so just having that shift in my position and where I am on the team, it kind of was mentally challenging for me. And that, being from where I'm from, again, you have to have that strong face. You can't really let your shoulders down. Even in tennis, you can't let your opponent know what you're going through. Coming to this school especially, I kind of learned how to step outside of that zone and try to find myself outside of tennis, because I think tennis defined me so much that I didn't know who I was without tennis. And as I'm coming towards near graduation and graduating, I'm finding myself without the tennis part and who I am. Number one goal and dream that I have of mine is to go back to my city and to build a facility that has tennis courts, because I feel sometimes like tennis is not really represented in the city, but I really want to go back, and I really want to influence and motivate the youth and the upcoming generation, because I ultimately was wearing their shoes at one point in time, and I'm definitely so lucky and so grateful to have had the people in my life to kind of set that path for me to get to where I am today.